So if you meet another Tibetan from a different part, can you communicate?
No.
Welcome to Mosaic of China, a podcast about people who are making their mark in China. I'm your host, Oscar Fuchs. From Belgian beer last week, we switched today to Tibetan yaks, with today's guest, Danmajyid. You'll hear how I forced Danma to become an unofficial spokesperson for all things Tibetan in this episode, so a big thanks in advance to Danma for managing this so well. Also in advance, keep your ears open for when Danma mentions Shanghai Jiaotong University in our conversation, because that's the same university where I'm currently studying my master's. I mention this because I was complaining about writing my thesis in the intro to episode 8 of season 2 with Giovanna Zhang, and a few of you have since then been asking about what I'm studying. Well, it's called a Masters of Modern Chinese Studies, which is the only course of its kind in China. It's a blended syllabus incorporating history, philosophy, literature, and linguistics. It's taught in English, and my history professor Zhang Zhiyuan, who featured in episode 3 of the season, has just let me know that the deadline for scholarship applications for the next intake is the end of March 2021. So I figured I'd do some free advertising since I've really enjoyed the course. If you're interested, you can find more details by just searching anywhere for Shanghai Jiaotong University, Masters of Modern Chinese Studies, and I'd love to know if anyone out there applies. Okay, enough of that, let's get back on track and talk about yak. Well, thank you so much, Danmajyid. Danma, you are from a very interesting part of China, aren't you?
Yes, so I'm from northwestern part of China, Gansu province, a Tibetan area in Gansu, 2 hours away from Lanzhou city, so it's kind of pretty close to Gannan prefecture. It's just a very nomadic area.
Well, before we move on to our conversation today, tell me, what object did you bring that in some way describes your life here in China?
Well, I brought my yak milk soaps. This is the business I'm working on at the moment.
Okay, well, let me have a look. Ooh, okay, so you've got 3 different soaps here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I see the yak logo immediately.
Yeah.
Explain what the product is itself.
So these soaps are made in my hometown in Gansu, the Tibetan area. And we use yak milk to make these products.
Right.
And the purpose of using yak milk is yak milk is a main consumption in Tibetan life. Most of families in the local area are herding animals. So this yak milk is very readily available. So that's why we also support local women to make yak milk soaps by using yak milk. Yeah.
The yak is just this animal that's so emblematic of the Tibetan Plateau, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I was little, my grandparents herding livestock, and especially yaks, and we have sheep just running around. And the environment is so open grassland. All yaks have names.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we also each families, they use different colors to make earrings for yaks, so they can distinguish which belong to which family.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you for a photo of a yak wearing earrings now.
Yes, I can provide one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are obviously the yaks that are being herded. Are there wild yaks too?
Yes, there are some, not a lot. Families are willing to offer yaks for mountain gods, so they are free. It's basically says belong to the mountain gods.
Right.
So they can be anywhere they want to be. Yeah.
So your family originally were yak herders. How many yaks did your family have?
It used to be around 200 yaks. And recently they tried to reduce, and I think also because the grassland overgrazing, and people agreed to minimize the number of livestock. They think it's very important to protect the environment as well.
Plus, it's very hard to remember 200 names.
Yes. Yeah, it was true. Very hard to remember which one lost, too many. These days, they just like take photos of each yak, and then they just, when they check, they say, oh yeah, this one lost, they remember it. And also the good thing is like WeChat is so popular, and they have all these groups, and when they lost the yaks, they just send the photo, and other people see it, they will just tell you.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I saw your yak down in that valley.
Yeah.
How funny. So talking about then the produce, so anyone who's been anywhere near the Tibetan Plateau will know about yak milk. It is ubiquitous, right? It's everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What role does yak milk play in your life up in Gansu?
Well, yak milk is main consumption. So we drink yak milk tea a lot. When people visit or you go someone's house, like they always offer you butter tea and yak milk tea. So I think yak milk tea plays a very important role because that how community building the connection and spending time with each other. But these days, like, people drink tea, but like don't talk much, because they are playing on the phone a lot.
Right.
It's just the change happens like enormously.
Is there a market for yak milk in China?
Not much actually. But Tibetan yak milk is really, really like superior than other milks. I also did all kinds of research, and even like compared with camel milk, it's so interesting because yak milk has like all kind of nutritions. Like there are so many. We used to use yak milk as a face cream because like yak milk is so rich and like very creamy, very good for the skin, and especially like cracking skins. Like they use like yak milk to heal. That's why like we think yak milk is really good for soap.
So how does that process work? Is that something which is a traditional thing that you used to do before, or is it entirely new?
For the community, this is very entirely new idea. So this skill is like we also got from American couple. They have soap project, so they always teach around the world about making soaps.
Right.
So I emailed them and then explained myself, and they came. So they spent a month in the village and taught women how to make soaps. All of these soaps, like we try to use local resources, like local herbs, and finding alternative resources to use in soap rather than just buy from Taobao. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what actually is the setup that you have in the village?
There are not many big machines. It's still like kind of a medium level. The purpose of this business is we want to create more jobs for people. So that's why we don't have big machines to replace people.
Right.
Just the blenders to mix in the oils, and we also have a soap cutter. So it's just all like manual operated machines. Yeah.
And did you have to build a building, or what was where is it?
We started the business just at home, and then we registered the business, and lots of stuff like happened, And I feel like I didn't able to sell actually. 2015, we start like kind of like experiment stage, and we were like not that confident. We felt like our soaps are not ready for sale. Like we will keep doing like the women start like losing interest, and that was a big difficult time. Local level people are more realistic. It's not always good way to really talk about big ideas. Like you have the mission and all these things, it doesn't work. And ended up having 2 women stayed with me, but it's a great way to being creative, like because the soaps, like you can make different colors, different shapes, whatever they would like to do. It's just like they really enjoyed it. That's why like they wanted to stay. So 2016, 3 of us like started from like selling to friends, like some friends like running businesses in Lhasa. So we asked them like whether they can take the soaps. And then they start to sell, and we start like, gained a little confidence on that. Actually, like we were like thinking too much about the soap, like not thinking about the sales, But after start selling, then we felt like, actually, some soaps like we like it, but not necessarily the customer likes. Especially like colors and the flavor really interesting. Like some soaps we really didn't like, but like the customers liked it a lot.
For example?
So we had like a pink clay, a soap made with pink clay. So we feel like, it's not that soft. But like people really liked it because it really good for scrubbing dead skin and also like detoxing. Clay is really good for detoxing. Also, like we put lavender. We feel like not that happy about lavender, but like people like it, so we had to continue to make it. So yeah, it's so interesting. That's why like slowly got back on the track.
Right.
Yeah.
And then today, like what is the setup now?
Now like we have 12 women and
Nice.
we also moved to a primary school in the village.
Oh, the primary school.
Yeah. So the school was run down for many years. So that's why the government said like we can use the space.
Nice.
And we want the community to use the space as well.
Who is your market?
In the past, like most are foreigners, but like this year, so we also want to focus on the Chinese markets as well. It's
Yes.
more Chinese are like prefer the natural products, so that's something like we really want to focus on.
And let's talk about this packaging, because I can see on the packaging that you have some Tibetan writing as well, which I love. And this obviously is the language that is your first language, right?
Yes.
So tell me about Tibetan language. Like, does it have any similarities at all to Mandarin?
No similarities.
Right.
Yeah, a different language. And there are three main dialects, Amdo, Kam, Urso. I speak Amdo dialect.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other two are where?
Kam is in Sichuan and
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 then-
Urso is like in central Tibet.
Right.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
So if you meet another Tibetan from a different part, can you communicate?
No, sadly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, people who studied can just speak more in academic way. People can understand each other, but like if we speak in dialects, like really, really difficult to understand. Even my language is Amdo, but like when I speak like my own dialect from the village is also hardly to understand. Yeah.
The next village.
Other parts of Amdo area.
Yeah.
So
And we've talked about your village. What's it called?
Dechin.
Dechin. Okay.
Dechin village.
And in terms of other differences you have between different parts of the Tibetan Plateau, what other differences are there?
Different areas have their own costumes. In my hometown, like, they have like coral and conch.
Conch.
Yeah, conch.
Right.
Conch and a coral, like
From the sea.
yeah, from sea. so I don't know like why, like, we are far away from the ocean, like so interesting, especially they make necklace and
Right.
yeah, so it's interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Because from what I know about that kind of lifestyle is because you were nomadic, you had to carry your valuables with you. So I'm guessing like if you had something made out of coral from many miles away, that would be very valuable, right?
Yeah, maybe.
But you don't know.
I don't know. Probably you're right.
But here we are in Shanghai, so you're living here now.
Yes.
So what was that decision?
A tough decision, but like, I mean, I like so many opportunities here, especially like as a businesswoman.
Right, because
And-
your market would basically be here.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
in Beijing and Shanghai, so it's easy for me to travel between the cities. And also like I start making friends in Shanghai, and I'm kind of like well connected, slowly connect to the community.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I have this idealized image of the plateau with the big sky and no people.
Yeah.
And I imagine you here in Shanghai with millions of people. Like, how do you cope?
Well, it's just I have to take a month to recover every time I come back in Shanghai.
Right.
Especially on the subway train, I feel like, just like too many people. I feel like just not that motivated to go out. And it will take about 3 weeks to recover until I feel comfortable to go out. Yeah. I still do my chanting every morning.
What's that?
So morning chanting, like, I have a mantra book, and every morning I'll do my chanting. Yeah. Wherever I go, like, I just like automatically just chant. Yeah.
Well, I love that we have our conversation about today, and then we can talk about your past and your childhood back in Gansu. How did you get to where you are now?
I finished my middle school, and then I went to English training program in Qinghai. That program really changed my life.
And Qinghai, that's the neighboring province, right, to Gansu?
Yes, Qinghai Normal University. That's how I learned my English. So after that, I graduated from the program. Then I also worked for different international companies in Shangri-La, Chengdu. Then I applied for the university because I always wanted to do something different, especially about some subjects like harder to find in China. So that's why I was just looking into overseas. I met some Australians in Shangri-La, and they recommended the university for me, and applied for it and got in.
Great.
Yeah.
So that was when you went to Australia?
Yes.
And it was when you were in Australia that you did that TED Talk, and that's what I have seen on YouTube. I think you're too embarrassed to watch it yourself these days, right?
Yeah, I don't.
But tell me about what I saw on that TED Talk.
Well, I'm just talking about the water project I did in my village because that was back in 2008 when I was doing my English training program at university. In my hometown, winter is really challenging because all the water frozen, right? And really hard to get water for people and livestock. They had to go different areas to search water. Most of water is just small rivers from the spring, just very unstable in wintertime. Also, women spent lots of time just carrying water, fetching water, and I feel about maybe something I can do with it. Use pipes to carry the water from spring all the way to each household. They will benefit 60 families, including a primary school. So that can be about 200 people. So I wrote a grant proposal and supported by my teachers at the English training program. After a year, it actually took a year to be funded. And surprisingly, funded by exchange program at Jiaotong University in Shanghai. So, yeah, we got the grant, a lot money that time. But the problem is at the beginning was not many people believed me I can do that.
Yeah, because you're pretty young now. How young would you have been back then?
I was 19. I think probably I was too young. And they think how come I can find that much big amount of money, right?
I guess, long story short, you made these pipes, right?
Yeah, yes. So it took 2 years to complete the project. It was quite a lot, and we did a really good job.
This is while you were still studying?
Yeah. Yeah. So every weekend I just go home and I just check the project.
Wow.
Yeah. But now the local water bureau, they took over the project and they are looking after the whole project. So it's pretty good. Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about you being from that village, right? That must have been a big risk, right?
Yeah, I mean, pressure from my family as well, because they don't want me to say anything about that because they feel like I'm giving false promise.
Right. So if you come in saying, hey guys, I'm going to do this, but then if you fail, that, yes.
Yeah. So my parents are very worried about it because people would say to them, not me. So.
And they have to be your spokesman, right?
Yes. So that's why my parents are not that happy that time. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, what is next for you then? Do you have big projects with the soap, or do you have other ideas?
The soap business will continue, to grow. And we also hope more local women, especially younger ones, can join us. Yeah.
But I guess this is part of your project, right? Because you're empowering the women in your project now.
Yeah. We just say, have a financial independence. Yeah. And we want to say this is, reducing gender inequality. It's automatically, it's just women can come to the soap production area space. They just spend time with each other and make soaps. And automatically, like, their husband at home do the most of housework.
Oh, that's great.
So it's just like some things like not need to really be that clear. It's just like interconnected.
Yes, it's very organic. Because you just create a different situation, and then equality just seeps in somehow.
Yes. And for bigger picture, like we want to become a natural cosmetic company. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Danma.
Thank you.
Let's move on to part 2.
Sure.
So, the 10 questions. Are you ready?
Kind of. I'm sorry.
These questions are hard. They seem easy, but they're hard, right?
Yeah.
Question 1. What is your favorite China-related fact?
I would say my hometown. The whole area, the region is like very famous for white yaks. So our yaks are all white, and no other Tibetans areas have that. So sometimes they just try to take some white yaks to the areas. So like
I've seen them. I saw a white yak in northern Yunnan province.
Yeah.
But that was probably from your area.
Probably.
Oh.
Yeah. So we have like a white yaks, and not many Tibetan areas have it.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite word or phrase in Chinese?
I would say 四海为家.
Okay, 四海 is like the 4 seas.
Yeah. 为家 means like make it home.
Okay, so 4 seas like home. Okay.
Wherever you travel to is your home. Because like I want to be a traveler as well, and I also have to, because of work, I have to live in Shanghai as my home. Right. That will make me feel more comfortable to live here.
Lovely. When someone asks me where is home, I don't quite know how to answer. So maybe I'll just say 四海为家.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Next, what is your favorite destination within China?
I really like Lhasa, Central Tibet.
Yeah.
When I went to Lhasa, like I really like the style, and made me feel like really connect to the culture. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to go to Lhasa. If you left China, what would you miss the most and what would you miss the least?
I really missed about Tibetan food. Momo.
What's that?
Momo is similar to dumplings, but like we also have like steamed momo, like it's really special.
So like mantou, is it?
Yeah, mantou, but like also like inside you have the fillings.
Like what? Like
yak meat.
Oh, I knew it.
Yak meat.
Knew it.
Yeah, yak meat and herbs sometimes. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
What would you miss the least?
Snow.
Snow.
Yeah.
Tell me about snow when you were growing up then. Like, what was it really like?
We got like heavy snow, and sometimes it would take a week just to melt. And it then keep snowing, then sometimes just like a month. Like, the road is all blocked, and
Next question. Is there anything that still surprises you about modern life in China?
Yes, a lot.
Yeah.
In my village, like people also like following all kinds of social medias. They also buy all kinds of stuff like from Taobao and Pinduoduo, all these apps. And the quality delivery person would send to us, like to our sole production space, because that is more convenient for them rather just go each household, because in nomadic area, like they all live far away from each other, right?
Right.
So our place become a collection area. So sometimes like the families would ask us to bring to them, bring my parcel. So
right, because I guess that is the most prominent address in the whole village, right?
No, the delivery person lazy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he doesn't want to travel each household. He would just like drop everything at our place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where is your favorite place to go to eat or drink or hang out? And I guess that could be here in Shanghai, or it could be in your hometown, or anywhere you've lived in China.
I really like Charu in Chengdu.
Oh, what's
that?
So
Charu is a Tibetan co-working space in Chengdu. If you ever go there, just to visit them.
Yeah.
I really like it there because like you often see like people just running into people and it's just nice to just hang out and have a cup of coffee. Yak milk.
Nice.
Oh,
yak milk coffee.
Yes.
How does that taste?
Tastes really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
very
don't believe you.
You can give it a try if you ever go to Chengdu. Probably
Okay.
I'm so used to yak milk. Yeah.
Next, what is the best or worst purchase you have recently made in China?
Well, I bought a jacket and then the color was not right. Quite different from the picture. I tried to return back and the guy said, oh, you just chose this color. And then I put a comment. I said, the color is quite different from the actual picture. And then the guy replied to me immediately. He said, delete your comment and I will let you to return back.
So did you do that?
No. I also accidentally took off the tag. So, yeah.
So now you have that jacket still?
Yes. It's a big lesson.
I'm going to ask you for a photo of that jacket.
Yeah.
What is your favorite WeChat sticker? Okay, I'm having a look now. Cute.
I sent like a little happy monk.
Oh, he's a Buddhist monk.
Yeah, Buddhist
Of
monk.
course he is.
Yeah.
I should have got that by the clothing. That's nice. What's your go-to song to sing at KTV?
I haven't been to KTV for so many years.
Maybe it's because you don't drink alcohol, is that right?
Yeah, yes. That probably.
Totally.
Yeah.
But maybe if you drink enough yak milk, you'll get some kind of high.
Hopefully. Yeah.
And finally, what other China-related media or sources of information do you rely on?
I mean, WeChat is a big main source for me.
Yeah.
I use a lot, and but also like WeChat like recently has like channels. I really like that because like I feel like my WeChat friends like something, then I can also receive the similar feed. So that's so interesting.
And that's a new thing, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Danma.
Thank you.
Just having had this conversation, I can tell how in Shanghai you're a certain version of yourself, and then when you go home you're a certain version, right?
Yes.
Well, the only thing I have to ask you now is, out of everyone you know in China, who would you recommend that I interview for the next season of Mosaic of China?
I would highly recommend Dorji.
Dorji.
Yeah. So Dorji, he runs another social enterprise in Qinghai Xinin. So he's also like a community leader, and he does all kinds of like work that really connect with the community. So I really want him to be on your program.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to meet him. And does he live there, or does he come to Shanghai as well?
He lives in Qinghai.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope that I can go and see him. Thank you so much, Danma.
Thank you.
Well, I still haven't been to Lhasa since recording this episode with Danma, but I have been to Gansu, and I highly recommend it. We timed it a little late, and by the time we reached the Tibetan part in the south, it had become unseasonably cold, so we didn't stay there long enough, unfortunately. But anyway, go to the transcript of this episode on mosaicofchina.com, where I've posted a link to the video we made there, and I'll see if there's a way I can also share it on Facebook and WeChat. You'll also be able to find all the other images there that Danma shared with me, including photos of her family, the costumes from her village, the white yaks wearing earrings, and of course the process of making the soaps. To order the soaps internationally, go to yakmybody.com, and in China there is a WeChat mini program which I'll post too, where the whole store has been discounted by 9% on all purchases made by March the 19th, 2021. Just place your order there, and the discount will appear automatically upon checkout. As with every episode this season, there is an extra 10 to 15 minutes of content if you subscribe to the Patreon page. Here are a few clips from today's episode.
I lived in the tents when I was little, but now people think tents is too inconvenient. The children raised by community members or grandparents, we use a juniper to have that purification ceremony.
They also wanted to have modern conveniences themselves, right?
Yes, yeah, conflict.
Yeah, there's a conflict there, right?
Every season you move to a new place, you have different neighbors.
Danma represents the first tile in the Mosaic of China, who is from one of the 55 officially recognized ethnic minorities in China. So interviewing her made me realise that there's still such a lot of diversity to uncover in future series. I also really appreciated having an episode with a heavy focus on one animal, the yak. It reminds me of one of the most popular episodes from last season, which was episode 14 with Emily Madge, who talked about her work in transporting a couple of beluga whales from an aquarium in China to a semi-wild sanctuary in Iceland. So be sure to check out that episode if you haven't heard it yet. Mosaic of China is me, Oscar Fuchs, with artwork by Denny Newell. After the credits, there is a catch-up chat with Gina Lee from Season 1, Episode 6, who also hails from Gansu Province. And I'll be back again next week. Hello, Gina.
Hello, you.
You make me smile whenever I see you, which is...
Never change.
Yes. And you are one of the people from Season 1 who, like me, have been stuck here in Shanghai most of the time.
Exactly. I think probably over a year already.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have actually seen you quite a few times, especially just on the street, randomly.
You are everywhere. Like, I just see you everywhere. Whenever I was like, am I going to see Oscar? Yeah, here you go.
Yes. Well, the reason I've brought you in today especially is to record this little update chat.
Yes.
So we did our original recording, it must be now almost 2 years ago. We obviously had the COVID situation, but your life was changing even before that, wasn't it?
Exactly. Like, after we recorded, I was selected to be the delegate of Chinese innovator, represent China, go to APEC. I went to Chile. I've seen a lot of people from the world. It's an Asian Pacific economy conference. It's like meant to be the 21 countries around the Asian Pacific. The really interesting thing is there are certain bits of like political influence of, like certain countries versus China. There are some different opinion. So there will be like very blunt like questions to ask you about the very sensitive questions that you try not to answer. And also, like it's just the total like atmosphere and the thing start to make you review on does people care about you from China or people care about who you are. Yeah.
Right. So what I'm hearing is it wasn't as welcoming as you would have wanted. You were sort of questioned, not about your business, not about your innovation, but more about you as representing China, right?
Exactly. Like no one even bothered. Like for 3 days, people doesn't remember my name. So that reflecting a lot of things on the business I did, the career planning I had. And it's just all of a sudden become a question called me and myself. Am I having them aligned? Like, have I never thought about that? Yeah.
Well, maybe I should, at this point, introduce what you were doing for people who did not hear your episode.
Yeah.
So at that time, you were the CEO of a product innovation company, right?
Yes.
And when you talked about the things you did, it was things like a telescope and things like a new way of doing candy floss.
Like robotic and the delivery system, things that I was like, I'm going to change the way of a lot of things.
Right.
Yeah. But I think because of the APEC, that was the first time in my life I thought it was like, what other thing I did could benefit myself? So after Chile, I did sit down with my partner and my investors or the advisors to tell them maybe it's a time to make a change. And I didn't know where the change would go, but it's definitely not going to be the same direction. So there are different opinions, but I'm quite lucky. I got my business partner very supportive, and he understands like for years I've been working 20 hours in the office, never thought about having my own life. I barely see friends. And quickly, just long story short, we decided to close the company. And after that, there a period of time I tried different companies. So like a big update is like I got assigned with one of the very amazing innovation firm here. It's called What If.
What If, right?
Yes, What If.
Yes, I've heard of that. It's
Really?
It's an innovation part of Accenture, right?
Yes, it's a really great team. And then after the battling through of the year, there's something I really want to dedicate to work on and let's say heal the past and then really open up a new future. Wow.
Yeah, and this reminds me of our episode as well, because when we talked on that episode, like the first 5 minutes straight was you talking about how you had got to the journey of becoming an innovation CEO.
Yeah.
And you had already gone through many reinventions. So I'm almost not surprised that you were about ready to do another reinvention.
I'm like, I think this thing evolved. It started to work even faster. Like, I rebuilt a new routine. I got up early. I start work early and go to gym. I adjust my diet. I realized, like, there are so many things in life you gain, you lost. There are so many problem issues you have to face, and you're struggling when the time happens. But there's nothing better than you feel you're still having yourself. That is amazing. It's more amazing than I was chosen to represent a country to go to a conference.
Yes, isn't it funny? And I think many people during COVID have gone through a similar transformation where they thought the things that you really thought were important before, you realize, no, your health, your family, your friends, your connections, those are what's important, right?
Yes, and I was writing the review of 2020. And interesting thing is, I don't remember any of the bad time. I don't remember any of the days I was struggling, don't know what to do. All I remember was the days like friends come to my house to support me because they don't want me to stay by myself. I remember seeing you on the street. I was just laughing, give you a hug. Everything I remember is the happiness.
Yeah. I think we are wired to not think about the troubles of the past. It's been such an interesting period, and most people have gone through some kind of change.
Yeah.
But yours is quite dramatic.
Yeah, it's as my life always be.
So just to wrap up this conversation, the person who you recommended in the end couldn't be part of the podcast.
Yes.
But I found a really good replacement. I think you'll be happy with who we found.
Yes.
And I'm going to be releasing this conversation at the end of that episode. So
oh, wow.
You will have some kind of connection with the season 2.
Oh, wow.
And I hope that you and I will also stay in touch in the future.
For sure. Let's do it.